My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and strategic choices that all of us can make in order to be fully alive. Today in the podcast studio, my friend and I, Beau talk about the essential ingredient to being fully alive. Not just living, not just surviving, but being alive, and that is to be fully known. Listen in. People might be wondering, Beau Johnson is back in the studio. Did you write another book? Yes, we did. We wrote another book, and we're here to talk about it today, and specifically these 3 words.
Be fully known.
But before we dive into a conversation that's going to be pretty, deep, first, for those who maybe don't know you, have never met my best friend, who did not know we write books, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Michael, I want to be in the foxhole with people who are in a fight that matters. And that clarity about myself has helped inform writing these books and showing up to do these podcasts. And the work that I get to do with my dear friend, Pat Lencioni at the Table Group, is we want to come alongside fights that are important, whether that's fighting for your heart, fighting for your family, fighting for a company that you want to have, that values that matter, that you're creating a culture that we want our kids to grow up in. I want to be in foxhole with people in fights that matter. And that conversation, Michael, about the foxhole, about being in a foxhole with people, has helped inform that this was going to be the title and subject of our 4th book in this Essential Conversation series. Because you loved to then take that and riff on it about this idea of inviting people into your foxhole, that it's not enough to say, I want every person I encounter, Michael, to feel like I was with them in their foxhole, that their fight mattered to me. And you pointed out that requires people being willing to invite you in. Mm-hmm.
And to be fully known. And we talked off camera. Obviously being known and being fully known are 2 very, very different things. But you talked about your work with Table Group. I'm talking about my work with D&B Coaching. Obviously together we've created what is called Third Space. In fact, our publishing company together is Third Space Publishing. And I know for me personally, not only do I want to be in foxholes like you do with leaders, but I also want people to be fully alive. We talk about that all the time in D&B Coaching and 3 Words Podcast. We want people to be fully alive, not just living, but it's impossible to be fully alive unless you have people in your life who love you unconditionally and know you fully. We all have struggles. We all have secrets and scars and skeletons. We all deal with various storms in life. And yet so often we just fly solo.
We do. Yeah. And it gets at this. I want to be known. I'm not sure I want to be fully known. That's a little scary. It risks that somebody will not accept me the more they know about me. In fact, I like that thing that you shared. If you want to be unconditionally loved and unconditionally known, and we're more likely to have one of those, right? Like it's possible for somebody to really like me, especially from afar, as long as they don't know me. And it's also possible that somebody would really know me, but typically as one goes up, the other one goes down, because I'm imperfect. I'm unlikable. I don't lead the way that I want to. I don't parent the way that I want to. I don't show up as a friend always the way that I want to. And the closer somebody gets to me, the more likely they are to see those scars, the pimples, the zits, the impact of my wounds on other people. And so the temptation for me is to then isolate myself. The temptation is to play it safe. The temptation is to believe that I'm the only one, right, who has this particular secret or mess, and that people really aren't interested. And we have this little script at the back of our head that says this: if they only knew, then things would change.
Yeah. And obviously you spoke about both of those sides of the coin in the sense of, unconditionally loved and fully known. Obviously, if we are unconditionally loved and not fully known, it feels extremely shallow. And so we tend to just live in shallow relationships, and they feel safer, but they are not fulfilling. They feel like there's less fear of rejection, as you mentioned, and yet they're not truly satisfying. I think that there is a risk that comes from being fully known, but I think it's worth the risk. Now, not with everyone. You know more about me than many people on the planet, and I want to be fully known by a few. But here's what's really cool. When you're fully known by a few, you're able to relate to the rest of the world pretty open-handedly and freely because you are fully known by someone or a few, as opposed to, you don't need to be fully known by everyone, but you know then that there's people who know everything about you and still love you unconditionally, which allows you to interact with the rest of the world in a selfless, open-handed, generous kind of way.
So, Michael, what would you say to the person if somebody's listening to this and they go, well, I'd like to be fully known. Why am I not?
Because you haven't invited people in. You know, it's interesting. We all want best friends without becoming the best friend that others want to be around. Like, we're always waiting. You know, it's like that high school, well, maybe a junior high school dance where you're kind of, you know, you have some students on one wall and others on the other wall, kind of looking at each other across the floor, hoping that somebody will take the initiative. You know, intentionality and initiative is required. It is risk taking. It is being first. It is not always waiting. Well, what if they don't reciprocate? They might not. And that's okay. And then you're fine. You're fine. We did another episode called Ask Them Out. You know, we people are waiting. You know, I can't ask that person out. What if they say no? You know, in this situation as well, you might step forward to someone and start sharing a little about your life and they don't reciprocate and they don't seem like they're interested. Well, what have you really lost? Because being fully transparent is really freeing for you, whether people respond favorably or not. I'm going to hit pause on my conversation with Beau to invite you, if you feel like this conversation is meaningful to you, if it's going to make a difference in your life, to go ahead and go deeper with us by purchasing the book. You can go to Amazon, Be Fully Known. That's a part of the Essential Conversation series. You can also see the links in the show notes below. Now back to the conversation.
So like we do in all of these Essential Conversations books, we're pretty vulnerable and we want to both be able to talk about the pain that we've experienced of being fully known, because we've both been rejected when we have been known by others and taken that risk. We've also learned things about what it looks like to share our story and how to be detailed and specific and invite people in. Let's talk about some of the practical parts of being fully known. Like, what does it look like to take a next step towards being a person who is more fully known in relationship with others? And I'll go first.
Okay.
And then I'd love to hear you,
Sure,
share a favorite highlight from the book. One of mine is to develop curiosity. Because there is something about when I am curious about myself and curious about others that begins to be reciprocated. When I walk around the world, we've talked about this in terms of being fully present, and I believe that other people are interesting. And I'm more interested in being interested in them than being interesting. I find that curiosity is often reciprocated. And while I totally agree with you that it is up to me to decide to be fully known, I can also begin knowing others. I can begin seeing others. I can begin being curious about other people and helping them on their journey towards being fully known.
I think for me, a step forward would be another potential 3 words podcast in the future. We haven't done this one, but it's these 3 words: express your emotions. Not just happiness, not just joy, not just excitement, but fear. Verbalize it. Verbalize your sadness. Verbalize your frustration. You know, so often we tend to are willing to share emotions when they're positive emotions, when they seem like they'll be well accepted. But I think there's something really cool when you ask someone, so how are you doing today? And there's a pause and they go, not the best. I'm drawn to that. I appreciate that transparency. But it's hard for me. I'm the life coach, right? In fact, we've had people comment about our books. The comment that we heard from day one when we wrote the first book is, wow, you guys struggle with this too? The authors are sharing examples, raw and real, present time examples, literally happening in the moment as the book is being written, where they struggle with these various issues. And so I think part of what we were doing there is sharing our emotions. This hurts. This stings. This sucks. This is hard. This is scary. Like, to be able to say to someone, I'm really scared right now. I'm really so sad right now. I had someone sitting in my office today, a student who came and met with me, wanted to talk about a recent breakup. And he was just like, I'm so sad. And I'm confused. And I'm hurting. And I just wanted you to know that. I wasn't going to fix the problem. The breakup was the breakup was the breakup. But there's just something about expressing your emotions in real time with what you feel.
My current favorite definition of maturity comes from Edwin Friedman, who says, maturity is the willingness to take responsibility for your emotional destiny. Isn't that so good? So, Michael, how do you do this? How do you deal with this? What about the person who would like for you to fully know them, but is pretty needy?
The overshare.
The overshare, or even the person who then makes you responsible for something that they've shared.
So again, being fully known, when I express to someone who I am, or they express to me who they are, it is not my responsibility to fix them. It is not my responsibility to be their full support as they work through a particular issue. I need to have boundaries. In fact, someone just asked me, today I had this situation, but even just yesterday I had another situation where someone said to me, how do you sleep at night? Being a life coach, with all the things you hear and all the things you see and all the stories that you're told. And I said, quite simply, I care about people's problems without carrying their problems.
Let's go.
And so it's like, I can't carry. And so I can care without carrying. So that's kind of my whole philosophy when I think about, and there are people who, when they share, they're expecting me then to become, like, I can't be everyone's best friends. You're my best friend. I have close friends. Obviously I have my close family. I have kids. I have my wife. My circle is pretty small in regards to being fully known. But what happens is, particularly in our world of consulting and coaching and mentoring and caring for people, is that some people will begin to share with us and become a little overly dependent or have high expectations about what that looks like. What I want to encourage them to do, Beau, is I'll say to them, what you just experienced with me and what you just shared with me, thank you for sharing and trusting me with that part of your story. However, take that same initiative, that same intentionality back into your spaces and places with the people who are in proximity to you and do the same. And then you'll experience maybe a little more support and more encouragement and more accountability, quite honestly, if there's things that they're dealing with and struggling with.
Yeah, so often if somebody this isn't the point of this conversation, but if somebody wants to dump all of that on me, often they just want to bring me into their dark. They don't actually want to bring that into the light. They just want somebody to commiserate with them. They don't actually want to get better. But this is not a conversation about that. This is about how we as people can invite others to help us be fully known. And I love what you said. Recently, my wife actually gave a talk at a retreat about being unresponsible. It's only 2 words, so it'll never make it onto this podcast. But I love that naming what I am not responsible for actually helps me be more present and be able to be more fully known, because I'm not responsible to fix you. I'm not responsible to fix your problems. I'm not responsible to carry them. My responsibility is to be present with you and to see you and help you be known. So if there's any kind of final thoughts about this, or like maybe even any more galvanizing you might do to somebody to say it's worth it, how would you help a listener get over the hurdle of the fear of being fully known?
Well, the fear is always going to be there. In fact, one of our podcasts was not "Don't Be Afraid." The podcast was "Face Your Fears." I'm never going to do a podcast episode entitled "Don't Be Afraid." It's going to be scary. You're going to be afraid. But I want you to face your fear and I want you to move past it. We've actually done other episodes here on 3 words you were not involved in, but we've talked about some of these things that tie into this idea of being fully known. We've done an episode entitled "Invite Honest Feedback." Right? We're inviting people in, cultivate close friendships. But the one I would mention in light of your galvanizing comment, in light of kind of a final thought, would be this idea of stop wearing a mask. Stop. When you're pretending, when you're playing charades, when you're walking through the world proposing that you are someone you're not, having your act always perfectly together, that is going to be not just a barrier, an obstacle, but a gigantic brick wall between you and this idea of being fully alive, because you're never going to be known. And you can blame whatever for why that's the case. But when you're wearing a mask, you've chosen that situation. You've created the situation where no one can ever know you. Now that's really scary. To take off the mask, maybe not do it in all one big sweep, but maybe begin to pull the mask apart little piece at a time and begin to identify, maybe even start there, identify what are things that I have kind of created that are masks or parts of my mask that I can begin to dismantle slowly but surely, piece by piece. And I think you'll just begin to see, wow, I'm beginning to feel more fully alive because I'm just a little bit more known. And I'm with you, Beau. I mean, this is such a dramatic book that we wrote. Be fully known. But that is our greatest desire in life. To be seen, to be known, to be loved for just who we are. There's such freedom in that. But to do so, we have to take off the mask and stop pretending.
Yeah, let me just comment on the mask, which is, where people wear masks? They wear them at masquerades. And so if you are a mask wearer and you're like, everybody around me is a mask wearer, what you will find when you begin to take off the mask is, I believe you will find other people who are interested in being around people without masks. And sometimes there is courage to be able to go first. And sometimes there is courage to be able to walk away from relationships that were defined by being fake or defined by pretending. And you may find that some people choose to go with you, but you are the only one who can choose to take off the mask for yourself. You can't wait until other people around you decide that that's okay. And maybe if I were to say one other comment, and it's related to something we talked about in another book, which is your next season, is to return to identity, to return to who are you? What do you believe? What do you believe is true about you? What is the core of who you are? And cling to that. That when there is something that is scary, what's sometimes scary to share, Michael, is our hopes and dreams. It's not just our past. It's not just our mistakes. It's what we believe is possible. And there's so much playing it safe out in the world. I want every listener to have somebody in their life that wants to listen to their dreams and believe what is possible with them. So take a first step. Remember who you are, and then when you do know, not everybody is going to be comfortable with that, and that may be an indicator of who you're taking with you into the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Beau.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And if you'd like to take a next step with us, we put some links in the show notes where you can find the book, and you can actually find opportunities to engage with Michael and I in the content as we wrestle through essential conversations like this one. Thanks.